Many of you have reached out to me regarding this topic, and so I wanted to bring it up in a way that's sort of different than what's already been addressed. But I want to talk about the topic of the third eye as well as the pineal gland from not only a scientific and medical perspective, but also from a historical perspective and as well as a spiritual perspective. Because remember, this is a truth network, and I do my best to give you all real, authentic truth versus man-made lies. So we're going to talk about the pineal gland and the whole concept. Now, the concept goes that the third eye, or what some say in esoteric thought, is what's known as the pineal gland. And through this gland, you can access your inner soul through DMT and through other means, and even through in Hindu belief and Buddhism belief of the chakra. Now we're going to talk about that, and you're going to see just where this really comes from. Now here I am at the Encyclopedia Britannica, and it talks about the anatomy of the pineal gland and what the pineal gland actually does from a scientific point of view. It says pineal gland are also called canarium or epiphysis cerebri, pineal organ or pineal body, endocrine gland found in the vertebrae that is the source of melatonin, a hormone derived from tryptophan that plays a central role in the regulation of circadian rhythm, the roughly 24-hour cycle of biological activities associated with natural periods of light and darkness. So basically, the pineal gland, scientifically speaking, has to do with producing melatonin, which helps you sleep, which is also responsible for dreaming. Now, it says the pineal gland has long been an enigmatic structure, so it's been really unknown. Even in the early 21st century, when sophisticated molecular techniques were available for biological study, fundamental features of the gland, including the extent of the effects of its principal hormone, melatonin, remain incompletely understood. So, in other words, the pineal gland is one of the newest discoveries that has been made in science, so to speak. At least that's what they want us to believe. Now, you could come here and read about the anatomy as well as the different hormones and where this comes from, but I just wanted to leave you here with this information. But I'm going to take you to another source as well, and this is from Endocrine Web about the endocrine system, because scientifically and medically speaking, the pineal gland is part of the endocrine system. And it says, according to Robert M. Sargis, MD and PhD, that the endocrine system is made up of networks of glands, and that these glands secrete hormones to regulate many bodily functions, including growth and metabolism. And it talks about the diseases, but simply put, the endocrine system is a network of glands that secrete chemicals called hormones to help your body function properly. Hormones are chemical signals that coordinate a range of bodily functions. The endocrine system works to regulate certain internal process, so not external, because that's the exocrine system, but it secretes hormones internally using the bloodstream, and it's responsible for growth and development, homeostasis, metabolism, reproduction, and response to stimuli. And that's also psychologically speaking as well, response to stimuli. You can learn more about that in psychology. Now, like I said, there's a reason I'm doing this the way that I'm doing it. Like I said, I'm not trying to bore you with facts and everything. I'm trying to give you history and outline where this idea comes from and the real meaning behind all this, because remember, this is a truth network. Now, I'm here at the online etymology dictionary, and I'm here to give you the etymology of the word pineal. And it says pineal from the 1680s in reference to the gland in the brain, from the French pineal, literally like a pine cone, or from Latin pinea, which means pine cone, from pinus, pine tree, see pine. So the word pineal, or where we get the word pineal gland, comes from the word pine, or it comes from pine cone or pine tree. You're going to see why this is so important historically, and what this has to do and how this relates to the whole third eye esoteric concept, because I'm telling you, this goes much deeper than you think. And when you understand the historical and the scientific fact of all this, then you can understand the spiritual and see the real agenda behind all this, and see who the real lie really is and where the lie really lies. Now, before I take you to the historical side of this with the pine cone and how that relates to this and why this is so important, I want to take you to the DMT, or the compound that is produced by the pineal gland, or said to produce it in order to produce so-called psychedelic effects, but also the history behind this as well, because some say, well, that through this it helps produce fluoride in your brain, and that's how you access your soul and blah blah blah. But the reason I'm taking you here is so that you can see exactly what it talks about. So DMT, or dimethyltryptamine, I probably pronounced that wrong, but I tried my best. It's a psychedelic compound of the tryptamine family. It is a structural analog of serotonin and melatonin, and a functional analog of other psychedelic tryptamines such as 4-ACO-DMT, 5-MeO-DMT, 5-HO-DMT, and the list goes on. Now, historically, it has also been used by the indigenous Amazonian Indian cultures and tribes for divinatory and healing purposes as well. Now, but when you look at the history of it, you see that DMT was first synthesized in 1931 by Canadian chemist Richard Helmuth Frederick Mansky from 1901 to 1977. Here are the sources that you can go for that for more, and I'll take you to one of them so that you can see it. In general, its discovery as a natural product is credited to Brazilian chemist and microbiologist Oswaldo Goncalves de Lima from 1908 to 1989, who in 1946 isolated an alkaloid he named nigerina, or nigerine, from the root bark of Gerima preta, that is Mimosa tenuiflora. So what I'm trying to get you to see in a nutshell, that this is in fact a man-made psychedelic, and that's where this comes from. And you can learn more about this history of the DMT in this article, which I'm going to take you to right now. Now, here's the actual study of DMT written with ethnobotanist and drug historian Jonathan Ott. That's where you can find more information. I'll be sure to leave this link below. I'm not going to go over it for the sake of time, but I'm going to let you come check it out yourself so that you can see that it's a man-made psychedelic. And I'm trying to get through that through your head so that you know, so that you're not deceived from what this really is and what really goes on, because it's all scientific. Okay, so now that you see the scientific side, we're going to talk about the historic side and why the pine cone and the pine is so important, because remember, the word pine is in pineal. So I'm going to take you to that as well so you can see the historic implications that this has, and that nothing new is under the sun. Now that we know the scientific and the medical side of the pineal gland and the endocrine system, as well as DMT, now we're going to take a look into the historic side of the third eye, so-called, or the pineal gland, and you're going to see how nothing new is under the sun, and how this has been going on for thousands and thousands of years, just in a different way. And then we'll talk about the spiritual side later on. But here I am here, and it talks about the pineal gland and crystal links, and I'm showing you this because I want you to see the real implication this has historically. It says the pineal gland, also called the pineal body, is a small endocrine gland. It produces melatonin. As stuff, we already went over this stuff, but the pineal is also shaped like a tiny pine cone, hence its name, and that's where you get the name from, pineal, or pine cone. It's shaped just like a pine cone, and you're going to see why this is so important and the historical implications to come with this. And I hope your spiritual eyes will be open to this, both of them. Now, when we do more history on pine cones, we start to see that historically speaking, pine cones were used by other religions long, long, long ago. It's nothing new. Nothing new is under the sun. And you're going to see actual proof of that right now. So as you can see, it says pine cones in Fibonacci numbers. And this picture shows you the Sumerian gods who create a biogenetic experiment. And this says Babylonian god Tammuz holds the pine cone. What is that telling you right here? Who is Tammuz? Tammuz is where you get the cross from. The cross has nothing to do with the Messiah and everything to do with the worship of Tammuz. Nature worship. The pine is what represents nature worship. Let's keep going. And we see here, it says pine cone at the Vatican. Why would there be a pine cone at the Vatican? It says the ibis bird goes to thus, or Z. Very interesting. Not only that, but we see a pine cone staff or rod of the Pope. And you can see the Pope holding a pine cone staff right there. I wonder why. But let's keep going. It says pine cone staff or rod of Osiris, intertwined snakes, or the caduceus rod of Hermes, which represents DNA. Very interesting indeed. And I'm going to show you more of this later on. But as you can see, here's the pine right there. Very interesting. Why would this be the pine cone or staff of Osiris, who is embedded in mystery religion, mystery Egyptian religion as well? Very interesting. But it keeps going. It says pine cone staff of Greek god Dionysus, okay, which was considered to be a man god, just like Tammuz and even Horus as well. Nothing new is under the sun. So the question you should be asking yourself right now is, based on these historic artifacts and what we see historically, why is it that both Osiris and Dionysus and the Vatican, why are they attributed with the pine cone or the pineal? I hope you're seeing this because it's real important. And it goes on to say the crown chakra, the third eye pineal, and you can see the same pattern as well. We see the 12 around one spiraling cones of creation. By the way, this is the same thought that's also embedded in the Kabbalah, the tree of life, DNA. You're going to see more of this to come, but I just wanted to show you all this. Oh, but there's more where that came from. Oh, but you can't have history without symbolism. And like I said, the purpose of this video is to show you where this comes from and where this originates from, because so many people have no idea where all this thought and where this mystery thought comes from. And so it's my job to help you understand where this comes from and what's really behind all this. And I'm trying to approach it from all angles as best as I can. But it says, according to Third Eye Pine Cones, it says history and symbolism. Throughout the span of recorded human history, pine cones have served as a symbolic representation of human enlightenment, the third eye, and the pineal gland. That's what you've been told. But it goes on to say conifer pine trees are one of the most ancient plant genera on the plain, having existed nearly 3 times longer than all flowering plant species. The pine cone is the evolutionary precursor to the flower, and its spines spiral in a perfect Fibonacci sequence in either direction, much like the sacred geometry of a rose or a sunflower, or what? Geometria. Here we go again. Let's keep going. Our pineal gland, shaped like and named after the pine cone, is at the geometric center of our brain and is intimately linked to our body's perception of light. The pineal modulates our wake-sleep patterns and circadian rhythms, remains uniquely isolated from the blood-brain barrier system, and receives a higher percentage of blood flow than any other area of the body save the kidneys. It is considered to be our biological third eye, the seat of the soul, epicenter of enlightenment, and a sacred symbol throughout history and cultures around the world has been the pine cone. But is this part true? Let's keep going. Now let's get into some history, because as you see, it's all embedded with the pine cone. Let's go to what it says. The Egyptian staff of Osiris, which we just talked about, which you can see right here, dating back to approximately 1224 BC, depicts 2 intertwining serpents rising up to meet at a pine cone. Why do you think there are serpents here? Let's keep going. Modern scholars and philosophers have noted the staff's symbolic parallels to the Indian Kundalini, a spiritual energy in the body depicted as coiled serpents rising up from the base of the spine to the third eye pineal gland in the moment of enlightenment. 2 serpents rising up. This should be ringing some real alarm bells if you know what I'm talking about, for those of you who really know what this can really implicate. It goes on to say awakened kundalini represents the merging in alignment of the chakras and is said to be the one and only way to attain the divine wisdom, bringing pure joy, pure knowledge, and pure love. With serpents though? Let's keep going. Depicting of Hindu deities are also interwoven with both literal and symbolic representations of serpents and pine cones, and we see that with who? Shiva. In some cases, Hindu gods are carved, sculpted, or drawn holding a pine cone and outstretched hand. Shiva, the most prominent god in the Hindu tradition, is consistently depicted with the head or coiled hair shaped in marked similarity to a pine cone and interwoven with the serpent or serpents. So you can see the serpent here, the serpent's there, and he looks like the shape of a pine cone on his head. And this, of course, was the Tammuz right here, and here's some other statues as well, and ancient symbolisms with this. But it goes on, it says, in addition to spiritual consciousness and enlightenment, pine cones have also historically, now this is a historical fact, been used as symbols of everlasting or eternal life, knowledge, the tree of knowledge. Let's keep going. Ancient Assyrian palace carvings dating back to 713 to 716 BC depict four-winged godlike figures purposefully holding aloft pine cones, or in some cases using a pine cone to pollinate their depiction of what the tree of life, Adam and Eve. Is this all starting to make sense? I hope so. A tribute perhaps to both the pine cone's immortality symbolism and its role as an icon of enlightenment. People, I hope your eyes are awoke. You're both your eyes and not just one of them, because I'm telling you, there's real serious implications behind this. But it goes on to say, in yet another culture's tribute to the pine cone as symbolic of spiritual ascension and immortality, a statue of the Mexican god, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, but it means seven snakes, again depicts the deity offering forth pine cones in one hand and an evergreen tree in the other. Evergreen. Where do we see evergreen trees? On Christmas, which gives homage to Nimrod. Mystery Babylonian religion. Let's keep going. The Greeks and Romans also incorporated the pine cone into their elaborate systems of religious belief and mythology. Dionysus, later known as Bacchus to the Romans, was continually depicted carrying a thyrsus, or a fennel staff woven with ivy and leaves, and toppled with the pine cone that looks very similar to this as well as this. You can see the pine right there. The thyrus, purported to drip with honey, was regularly used, Slovakia, as a sacred instrument at religious rituals and fetes. Romans later built an enormous bronze sculpture, the Pygna, in the shape of a huge pine cone 3 stories tall. According to a popular medieval legend, the sculpture stood on top of the Pantheon as a lid for the round opening in the center of the building's vault. The Pygna is confirmed to have served as a large fountain overflowing with water next to the who? Temple of Isis? Temple of Ishtar or Easter in ancient Rome. However, the gigantic statue now sits directly in front of the, where does it stand today? The Catholic Vatican, in the court of the pine cone. I hope you're seeing where this comes from. Of course, it talks about the Catholic religious tradition is interwoven with pine cones, blah, blah, blah. We see that with the Pope as well. We see that with the papacy. It also gives what the illumination in the church, where all this comes from, the awakening of the pineal gland. Yeah, that's what they want you to believe. This article goes on to talk about how the pine cone is also embedded in symbolisms as well, throughout religious symbols, and not just Hinduism and Buddhism, but also throughout world religions worldwide. And I just shown you earlier that it appears not only in Assyrian hieroglyphics as well as statues, but also in ancient Roman and Greek statues, and we saw it with the staff of Osiris, Egyptian, as well. But it's also in Freemasonic buildings as well, because pine cones are also placed in Freemason octagons on the ceilings of Masonic lodges. So it's also embedded with Freemasonry as well, all the mystery religion, and we can see this as a religious symbol as well, just like the swastika, the Christian cross, the all-seeing eye. It's the same thing, and I hope you're seeing this, because there's a real bigger implication with this, and there's a reason I'm talking about this, and you may be wondering how this relates to the third eye. You're about to find out just in a moment. Now that we have gone over both the scientific and the historical aspects of the pineal gland and the pine cone and the pine tree, as well as the etymology, now we're going to start getting into the spiritual implications of the third eye and where this really comes from, because I need you to see where this comes from and that this is nothing new. And what they're telling you is complete lies, that there's a real history behind all this, and I hope you're seeing it. But this says, and I'll make sure to leave the links below, the pine cone symbol is one of the most mysterious emblems found in ancient and modern art and architecture, just as we went over. Few scholars realize it, but the pine cone alludes to the highest degree of spiritual illumination possible, and we're going to talk about that as well. This was recognized by various ancient cultures, and the symbol can be found in the ruins of the Indonesians, Babylonians, Egyptians, Greeks, Romans, and Christians, to name a few. And we went over the Babylonians with Tammuz. We went over the Egyptians with Osiris and the staff. We went over the Greeks and the Romans with Dionysus, as well as being on Roman carvings, and the Christians with the Vatican. But let's keep going. It also appears in the drawings of esoteric traditions like Freemasonry, and we just went over that, Theosophy, Gnosticism, and esoteric Christianity. The pine cone held the same meaning for all. It symbolized the secret vestigial organ, the pineal gland, or the third eye that we all possess. That is what this is taught in all of these traditions and esoteric beliefs. In all of them, this is what it's taught in religion, and we're going to see more of that. But I want you to see the pictures where it shows all of this, and it shows it here in symbolism all over Cambodia. We see it there in the Angkor Wat. We also see it, of course, I just showed you this in the Roman bronze sculpture, the Pigna, the pine cone. We see it here too, like I said, the staff of Osiris that was found in 1224 BC, and then it goes into the third eye and pineal gland. But this is what I want you to see. It says, interestingly, the esoteric symbol of Kundalini Yoga, and that's what we were just talking about earlier, is the caduceus, a symbol that features two antithetical serpents. And as you can see, this is the serpent symbol that's used in medical all over the place, but it's also used where? In Kundalini Yoga. Is that a coincidence? It's not looking like it. I hope you're starting to see where this is coming from. This says Kundalini is a spiritual energy or life force present in every human being, located at the base of the spine. To awaken the third eye, the Kundalini energy must be summoned to the forehead, where it expands and thus awakens the third eye. The energy is said to travel along the Ida left and a Pingala right up the central pole, or Shushumna. But as you can see, what are you really accessing here? I hope you're seeing that, because if not, then I hope you're really seeing this stuff, because it's real serious implications. And of course, we go back to the Sumerian god Marduk, back to Tammuz, the right Dionysus, the Roman god with the pine cones, and we see pine cones all over the place in history. And we see the third eye as well, and we're going to get into the eye of Horus, or the eye of Ra, the eye of the sun god as well. And I'm going to talk about these things in just a moment to come. Like I said, hopefully this is helping you see where this comes from a different angle and from a different perspective, and not just from the same watered down perspectives of religion and from the same watered down perspectives of other places. But hopefully this is helping you see the whole picture and the full picture of where this comes from. And I want you to know that it's nothing new. This stuff has been going on for a long time, but I want you to see what it's commonly associated with. That is my goal and purpose of doing this. So here I am at Wikipedia that talks about the third eye, and it says, the third eye, also known as the inner eye, is a mystical and esoteric concept referring to a speculative invisible eye which provides perception beyond ordinary sight. In certain dharmic spiritual traditions such as Hinduism, the third eye refers to the anja, or brow, or chakra. And Theosophy is related to the pineal gland, which we just talked about. The third eye refers to the gate that leads to inner realms and spaces of higher consciousness. In New Age spirituality, the third eye often symbolizes a state of enlightenment or the evocation of mental images having deeply personal, spiritual, or psychological significance. The third eye is often associated with religious visions, clairvoyance, the ability to observe chakras and auras, precognition, and out-of-body experiences. People who are claimed to have the capacity to utilize their third eyes are sometimes known as seers. So we see exactly where it comes from, and it's also talked about in, mostly embedded in, Hinduism and Buddhism thought, and schools of thought. And we see a Cambodian Shiva head showing a third eye, but it's not just Shiva, and it's not just comes from Hinduism, it's Buddhism as well. Like I said, the idea of a third eye is nothing new. It comes from historical facts, it comes from all the mystery Babylonian religions, but it also comes from world religions today, such as Buddhism and Hinduism. And it's interesting when you try to tell people this stuff and they try to say, oh, don't bring up religion though. Oh, don't bring up religion. Don't bring up religion. Yet they're the same people who don't even understand that the third eye comes from religion. It comes from Hinduism and Buddhist thoughts and teachings. teachings. That's where it comes from, as well as being embedded in Freemasonry and mystery Babylonian religion. To talk about the third eye and to talk about the chakra, that is religion. And I hope people understand that when you bring that up, you're talking about religion when you bring that up, because it's a religious thought. It's a set of beliefs. That's what religion is. So let's get that clear. But here I am at Token Rock that talks more about the third eye, and it says the third eye is known as the gateway to higher consciousness. It may alternately symbolize a state of enlightenment. In Eastern and Western spiritual traditions, the third eye is known as the inner eye, the mystical and esoteric concept referring to the Anja chakra. The third eye is associated with clairvoyance, out-of-body experiences, visions, and precognition. People who have developed their third eye are known as seers. Hinduism and Buddhism use the third eye as symbolism of enlightenment, just like the Illuminati, because the Illuminati means the enlightened ones. I hope you're seeing that. It says it is referred to as the eye of knowledge in Indian tradition, Gnosticism, knowledge, good and evil, Adam and Eve. Are you seeing where this is coming from? I hope so. East Asian and Indian iconography show the third eye as a dot, eye, or mark, interesting, mark on the forehead of deities and other enlightened beings. Kind of like the mark of the beast almost, if you want to put it that way. Hindus place a tilak between the eyebrows as a representation of the third eye. So of course you can see that it's embedded with Hinduism and Buddhism as well. You can activate it through meditation and clairvoyance according to it, and we know that the pineal gland, of course, that's where it comes from. But there is more to this than just what meets the eye. There's more to it than just what meets both eyes, and I hope your spiritual eyes are starting to awake to this, because I'm telling you, this goes much deeper than you think. Like I said, because this is a truth network, my job is to expose everything, and that includes exposing the lies of religion, because remember, this is all embedded in religion. So to say that, oh, well, accessing the third eye, that has nothing to do with religion, yes, it does. It is religion. So let's keep that in mind. But this is this says Buddha's third eye, and this is about Buddhism and the third eye and Buddhist belief and tradition. It says, you may have come across many Buddha statues and Buddha heads like this one, in which a small hairy dot appears between the eyes of the figure. This particular dot is known to have existed in many statues and stupas in the iconography from different nations such as Nepal, India, Burma, Thailand, etc. So Eastern Asia. If we go through the teachings of the Buddha, or the Buddhist teachings, hatred, delusion, clinging, and greed cause suffering in the world. The Eightfold Path of the Buddha has been a great way of ridding oneself of these traits and obtain a higher peace of one's life and reality. Of course, this is according to Buddhist teachings and beliefs. This is not my own, but let's keep going. It says, belief of the third eye. In the same way, the dot, which represents the third eye of the Buddha for the Buddhists, was adopted by the followers of Buddhism as well as Hinduism and Taoism in various Asian countries. The Buddhists take the third eye as the symbol of spiritual awakening, of knowledge and wisdom. While the Hindus have a belief of the third eye being a channel to the inner and hidden power, the Westerns symbolize the third eye as the symbol of second sight, or clairvoyance. So it represents all of that. It represents the indivisible eye, which provides perception to the reality beyond ordinary vision of the people. Now, mind you, this is not according to me. This is according to the Buddhist belief and teachings. I myself am not a Buddhist, nor am I Hindu, nor do I identify with any religion. So let's just get that straight. I am a follower of Yahuwah, and I expose the truth and expose lies for what they really are, and expose religion as well. But let's keep going. Now, it's no surprise that the third eye is also related and very similar to the all-seeing eye, because in Freemasonic thought and in Freemasonry, the all-seeing eye is thought and even taught to be the eye that accesses knowledge and gives you knowledge when accessing it. So there's no surprise or coincidences that it's all similar. It all is the same thing, embedded within the same thing. And if you're not seeing that now with both eyes open, I honestly don't know what to tell you, because I'm telling you, it's all stems from the same thing. It all stems from the same esoteric thought from Freemasonry, from mystery Babylonian religion. It all comes from the same thing. It's nothing new. And all the New Age spiritualism comes from this, but whether you want to believe it or not. And I'm trying to get you to see that because I want you to see the bigger, more nefarious agenda behind all this and what you're really accessing if you try opening up this third eye. The final place I'm going to take you today is the Kabbalistic view of the chakras, or according to the website, the Kabbalah Society. So, because I want you to see that this is embedded in the Kabbalah as well, of the idea of a third eye and the chakra. It's nothing new. It's all embedded in the same things. Now it says the article places the chakras onto the diagram of the tree of life. If you know anything about the Kabbalah, and I highly recommend you do research on the Kabbalah in your own time, you're going to find that the Kabbalah and the tree of life has to do with the tree of life, has to do with knowledge. That's where you get all your Gnosticism. That's where you get all this stuff from. But it's also embedded with what? The worship of the Kabbalah, Freemasonry, the Illuminati, and what's behind it? Judaism, whether you want to believe that or not. That's just the truth. But it goes on to say the chakras are connections between the physical and psychological bodies. They are situated in the spinal column, but their reflections can also be perceived as whirling discs in front of the body. As for the exact physical location points in the body, there is much literature available that deals with this in detail. My reference is Kundalini Tantra by Swami Satyananda Saraswati, and all quotations are from this book, so you can find more information on this book. And we went over the Kundalini and how that eerily represents serpents within the body of the DNA. And so it goes on to talk about the Sanskrit word mula means root or foundation. That is precisely what the chakra is. And it says Muladhara is at the root of the chakra system, and its influences are at the root of our whole existence. In Tantra, Muladhara is the seat of Kundalini, the basis from which the possibility of higher realization arises. This ordinary ego mind of Yasod works and runs of our lives more or less automatically. It is not until one takes steps towards spiritual development that this chakra awakens and its functions become conscious, which can be a painful experience. Why is it painful? Because what are you allowing to come in? What are you opening up yourself to if you're trying to access this third eye? I hope you're seeing the real implications and see something should be really alarming to you if you're really trying to wake up to truth, is the fact that not only is this found in Freemasonic belief, this is also found in Egyptian belief, it's also found in all the ancient religions, but it's also found in Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, and the Kabbalah. It's found in all of these ancient religions. That is where this stems from and comes from. So if that's not ringing some alarm bells to you by now, well, I seriously, honestly don't know what to tell you, because willful ignorance is a real thing. But like I said, I'm trying my best to awaken you to truth. Continuing on with the spiritual side, see, I know a lot of you are going to try to, argue and debunk and say, oh, well, it's in the Bible, so it's okay. Oh, it's in scripture, so it's okay. Well, not when you read it with context, because of course it says, oh, you're going to say, oh, it's in Genesis chapter 32, where it says, oh, Jacob called on the name of the place Peniel, and it just so happens to sound like Peniel. He's not talking about the pineal gland. Trust me, it's not talking about that. Believe me when I say that. And also, it's also in Hosea chapter 14, verses 8. It says, O Ephraim, what more have I to do with idols? I will answer him and care for him. I am like a green pine tree. Your fruitfulness comes from me. Pine tree, that's talking about what? Ephraim having to do with idols. It comes from idols or other gods. It comes from paganisms. That's where it comes from. People like to try to use these verses in scripture to try to justify this stuff. I'm telling you, you have to always read in context. Then they try to justify it with Matthew chapter 6 as well, where it talks about the light of the body is the eye. If therefore your eye be single, your whole body shall be full of light. Do you really think this is talking about the third eye? Nowhere in scripture is this does it even mention the words third eye or the phrase third eye? It's not talking about that. This context in Matthew chapter 6 is talking about when Yahusha is teaching us how to pray to Yahuwah. That's what that context is talking about. It has nothing to do with talking about, oh, the third eye and the pineal gland and we're supposed to use it. No, it's not talking about that. And you need to honestly wake up to this stuff because it's real serious and important, because there's a bigger implication that comes through with accessing this so-called third eye. And I hope you're going to see what it is. Like I said, you all need to be very careful when it comes to this type of stuff and when it comes to these types of teachings and these types of belief, because if you're not getting the full scoop, or if you're not getting the full scope of this, then you're just going to think that, oh, it's okay, that, oh, there's nothing really to it, when you don't even understand. Even trying to access this, you're involving yourself with religion, because this is found in Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, all the mystery religions. And like I said, what is this really accessing to? What is this whole third eye? What are you allowing to come into your body and into yourself and into your temple when you're trying to open up the third eye? It even shows you right here. Right here it says the caduceus staff, carried by Hermes in Greek mythology. In ancient Rome, it was depicted in the left hand of Mercury. Right, a visual representation of the practice of Kundalini yoga, the ultimate goal of which is to awaken the third eye hidden in the human forehead. Okay, when you awaken it, who are you really awakening to? Serpents. Who's the serpent? Satan. I'm telling you, I have not done a ton of videos on this, but I want to cover this more in detail. Is that when you do certain things, or when you allow your body to do certain things or to participate in certain things, you're opening up yourself to demons. And you may not want to believe that, you may not want to accept that as truth, but that is real truth, is that you're opening yourself up literally to serpents, to demons. If you even the thought of it, you could be opening up yourself to allow demons into your house and into your temples when you're trying to access the third eye. That is just the truth, because it even shows you right here. It even shows you serpents that were used by the ancients in Greek and Roman mythology back then. And you even see it in symbolisms today. And I'm going to prove that to you right now. Like I said, you see the third eye as well as in Freemasonry as well. And I'm going to prove that to you, because it says in modern times, famous authors, painters, and poets have described the third eye and pineal gland as being nothing less than the lost secret of Freemasonry. In his 1918 book, The Wonders of the Human Body by Dr. George Washington Carey tells us, and quote, the all-seeing eye, this is the eye of Freemasonry, the third eye. While I am credibly informed that few Masons understand their own symbols, the fact remains that they use them. In her fascinating 1924 book, Mystic Americanism, the obscure American author Grace Morey explained the all-seeing eye, also emblematic of the pineal gland or third eye of the human being, has been found amid the ruins of every civilization upon the plane, thereby attesting the fact of a universal religion over all the earth at some remote period. Don't you see what this is? New Age spiritualism, one world religion. Don't you see where this comes from? Don't you see that the third eye is related to that? Freemasons have even admitted that the third eye comes from Freemasonic thought. It comes from Freemasonry, and it's used throughout Masonic decoration. I even showed you that of a church that even has the pine cone in it and the shape in it as well. But that's not all, because it says a large Masonic design on the side of the Whitehall building in the New York financial district depicts two enormous intertwining snakes spiraling up to a pine cone, which is strikingly similar to the staff of Osiris. And you can see that design right here, and you can see a caduceus depicting a pine cone appears on the Whitehall building in New York City. Now, why would they have the pine cone symbolism, the wing symbolism, and the two serpents that you see on medicals everywhere, and what looks to be a sun right above it to represent sun worship, nature worship, serpents? Are you seeing this? Because they're even showing you right in front of you. And it goes on to say pine cones also adorn ritual instruments used by Freemasons inside Masonic lodges. The tops or points of the Masonic rods of deacons are often surmounted by a pine cone or pine apple. So it's embedded all over Freemasonry, all over the place. It's depicting the third eye, the eye of Horus, Freemasonry all over again. This goes all the way back to mystery Babylonian religion all over again. It has nothing to do with Yahuwah. It has nothing to do with righteousness. It has everything to do with esoteric Freemasonic religion. And if you don't know that now, well, now you do. In conclusion, do not be deceived. Do not be fooled. Please know where this stuff comes from. Know what you're getting yourself into, and just know who you're allowing into your body and into your temple if you open up this so-called third eye, and where it's really coming from, because all of the mystery religions say the exact same thing. It comes from mystery religion. I'm not making this up. I've just shown you tons and tons of evidence and proof today, and if you still don't believe me, and if you still want to say, oh, whatever, that's not true, that's honestly up to you, because that's just willful ignorance, honestly. But like I said, my job is to give you real, authentic truth. But to conclude, the pinecone symbol then alludes to the third eye. It abounds in ancient art and architecture, a symbolic representation of our now dormant window to the world. While knowledge of the third eye and the practice of the awakening of the third eye continued strong in the East, it began to die down in the West because of religions here. Consequently, secret societies like the Freemasons were established to protect third eye knowledge and to initiate new members into its wisdom to keep their practice alive. They don't want you to know this stuff. They want you to think that, oh, I can just access the third eye with no problem. Oh, if I just access the third eye, become one with myself and do the chakra and all that, nothing's bad is going to happen to me. There's no religious implication with it. When doing so, you're participating in religion and you're allowing the demons to come into you, because it even tells you that it's what? It's the sacred emblems in Freemasonry, and they're trying to keep this stuff hidden from you. They don't want you to know the truth behind all this, and I'm trying my best to wake you up to truth. And for those of you who are really righteous and who really want the truth and who want to seek righteousness, I highly suggest you do more research on this topic and come to your own conclusions, because like I said, this goes much deeper than you think it does. And I just spent over 40 minutes with you telling you and explaining to you how deep this goes and how deep the rabbit hole goes, because it goes much deeper than you think. So I hope that this will help you. I hope that this has helped you open your spiritual eyes and awake to truth. I hope that you will start seeking Yahuwah and his true son, Yahusha, because I'm telling you, this goes deeper than you think. You are allowing demons to come in if you continue to do this, or if you don't see it now and see the full picture. But hopefully I've been able to give you the full picture and the full scope. I hope both your spiritual eyes are awoke to this so that you can see truth for what it really is and get away from the lies of religion and mystery Babylonian religion. This is Truth Unveiled here saying, Shalom.